Hey now, good Thursday afternoon, and welcome to 580 Sports Talk, an extremely abbreviated edition of 580 Sports Talk, thanks to the Kansas City Royals having their game last night against the Detroit Tigers suspended after getting through just 4 innings. So they went on and played a game and a half today, and that delayed 580 Sports Talk, but we are happy to be with you today. Well, let me rephrase that. I am very happy to be with you today. Jake out for the rest of the week. Dan, he is on his way to Hummer Sports Park for some high school football action tonight. That's right, special edition Thursday night high school football here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, brought to you by Lewis Toyota. United Kansas Conference action on tap from Hummer Sports Park. It will be the Topeka West Chargers looking for their first win of the year as they take on the Lansing Lions. 6:45 pregame coming your way. Dan and Greg will have you with the call, and yours truly is going to make an appearance on the sideline as well. That'll be right here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW coming up tonight. 6:45 pregame, 7 o'clock kickoff, Topeka West hosting Lansing. We'll have 580 Sports Talk overtime from 6 until 6:45. You didn't get a full day's worth of 580 Sports Talk today. Obviously, we're just starting the show right now, but we do have some audio for you. We're going to listen back to our conversation from earlier this week with Jesse Newell during overtime. Plus, the Chiefs coordinators spoke today. Steve Spagnuolo, Matt Nagy, they both spoke today. We're going to hear from both of them coming up during 580 Sports Talk overtime just after the top of the hour. And again, that's before pregame for high school football presented by Lewis Toyota coming up tonight. Since we have an abbreviated edition of 580 Sports Talk today, we're going to get to as much as we possibly can between now and 6 o'clock. That includes, bottom of this hour, as we do every Thursday during Chiefs season. You know we're talking to Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Chiefs, brought to you by Hy-Vee and Azure Credit Union. He's going to swing on by, hang out with us coming up at the bottom of this hour as we look back on the dominant win over the Chicago Bears for the Chiefs. We'll look ahead to a matchup that has lost a lot of its luster against the Jets coming up this Sunday night. We'll talk about that with Mitch. And I'm going to preface this. I am not going to directly ask him about Travis Kelce's love life. I'm not going to do that. If you've been listening all week, you know it ain't my thing. I'm not dying over that. I'm not tripping over myself, getting excited about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. But I am curious, as someone who is ingrained with the team, who is with the team, embedded with the team all year long, I am curious what the greater worldwide attention on the Chiefs has been like over the last week or so. So we're not going to get into the stuff that I know you guys are tired of, and trust me, I'm also tired of it. But we'll get to some of the, hey, isn't this weird that you're now the center of not just the football universe and the sports universe, but the pop culture universe too? We'll ask Mitch about that, and of course, we'll get to the football as well, bottom of this hour. We'll preview Thursday Night Football. My Green Bay Packers, and I can say it like that because, as you know, I am an owner of the Green Bay Packers. They will take on the Detroit Lions. Huge game in the NFC North tonight. We'll get you some picks and a preview of that game coming up a little bit later on. And, of course, we've got our 580 Sports Talk headlines, a few big ones, which we will get to coming up here in just a few moments. You are, as always, welcome to hop in on the text line. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. And, of course, make sure you check out the YouTube live stream. That is right. Just head to youtube.com. Search 580 Sports Talk. So simple to find our channel. All you have to do, YouTube, search 580 Sports Talk. We are the first result. There might be an ad there first, but if it's not an ad, we are the first result. So click on that. Make sure you subscribe if you're logged in. And if you're not, then log in and then subscribe. And you can check out the live stream. Just me today. I'm even in Dan's studio today. It's the whole topsy-turvy world going on here at 580 Sports Talk today. But check out the live stream. You can hop into the comment section. It is live and rolling throughout the brief edition of the show today. Would love to know whatever you're thinking about what we've got going on the show today. And, of course, subscribe so you can check out all the other video content that we do all the time. We'll have a recap from Washburn this weekend against Nebraska Kearney. Yours truly will be out there in Kearney for that game, so we'll have a video recap of that one. We will have updates on KU and K-State action from the weekend. Well, no K-State action this weekend, but you get the drift. We'll have our Chiefs post-game show on Sunday night, all on our YouTube channel, which, again, can be found if you just search 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. A couple thoughts in from the YouTube comments, in fact, and I will get to these really quickly as we are coming back from a Kansas City Royals loss. I know we're beyond the Royals. We have, as a society, we have evolved beyond the need for the 2023 Kansas City Royals. And I know that might hurt you, might stick in your craw. It might hit you right where it hurts the most if you are a diehard for the Kansas City Royals. But, I mean, their fate has been pretty much sealed, save for, are they going to be historically awful or just regular awful this year? It's been sealed since, like, May. Based on your perspective, maybe April. Maybe there's a signifier. Maybe there's a benchmark for you. Maybe it was when Vinny went on the injured list and then had to have season-ending surgery. Maybe that's when you felt like, okay, this season's effectively over. Or maybe you just looked at the record. I think it was our pal Christopher who told us earlier that until this past week, the Royals had not been above a .333 winning percentage since they were 3-6 9 games through the season until just within the last 2 weeks. Not been a pretty year. They had that great series in Houston, all but knocking Houston out of playoff contention, although the Astros are clinging to hope in the American League. This is not the way you want to end your final road trip of the year if you're the Kansas City Royals. And in the grand scheme of things, doesn't mean a lot. Probably not, but with this many young guys, with this many guys who are fighting for spots, who are fighting for opportunities, do you really want to go into the postseason and, well, for you, the offseason, Kansas City, with this kind of game as your lasting memory or of one of your lasting memories? That's why I think the next 3 days against the New York Yankees, who are, in fairness, white hot right now, it's important. I really do believe that. I'm not trying to make this a bigger deal than it is, but I do think for a young team, a team that wants to contend next year, and for a fan base too, and I know I'm speaking to you guys as Royals fans, that it would mean something to at least have a little bit of hope going into the offseason. And I get it if you don't feel that anyway. And even if they win 10-0, 10-0, 12-0 in their final 3 games against the Yankees, you're not going to feel any different. I don't blame you. I think that's totally fair and valid and justified, and it makes complete sense to me. But you want at least a little positivity going into the offseason, right? At least you want, the bitter taste in your mouth. No one likes a bitter aftertaste. You want something to go down smooth. Winning a couple games against the Yankees at home to close things out. Maybe Zach Greinke's final start. Maybe the final start of his career coming up on Sunday in the season finale. You win that game. Send the fans home happy. Win on Fan Appreciation Night. Things like that. We've got a couple of comments in here from YouTube that I did want to get to. One from Christopher. Are an 11.25 ERA, a 2,500 WHIP, and a 1.234 OPS good? No, I can answer that quite definitively. Not great numbers if you're a pitcher. He adds, if so, whoopee, put Carlos El Gasolina Hernandez in the rotation, because those are his numbers since Scott Barlow was traded. We talked a few times before training camp, if we're being blunt. We talked a few times this year about how the Royals had a nice bullpen at the start of the year. Through May, really. May, if I remember correctly, maybe into that first week of June, it really felt like, hey, there's something here with this bullpen. Nothing else is going well. That was before Bobby Witt Jr. really took off. Before Brady Singer hit his stride and then eventually got injured as well. But all right, at least the bullpen is fine. At least they got something there, right? And then they trade Chapman and they trade Barlow, and things have just progressively gotten worse from there. And you were hoping that more guys would step up, I think. And you've gotten that. You trade and add Cole Reagans in the Aroldis Chapman deal. He ends up being a really nice piece for this team, even though he ends up not getting a winning decision today. He was fantastic through 6 innings. Not the greatest move by Matt Quatraro to leave him out there. I don't know if Reagans was saying, you got to keep me out. You got to keep me out. I don't know. He's a staple going forward. So you saw that kind of guy step up. Singer had his moments. I think you would have liked to have seen a few more of those over the course of this season, the latter half of this season anyway. And Carlos Hernandez, not in that group. Certainly not in that fraternity. Vance on YouTube, he says, today is the last time you'll be interrupted by a Royals game this season. Yeah, that's true. I did have that in mind. I was talking to my wife last night about how, wow, it's the final day game for the Royals. This is the final show that will be shortened by the Kansas City Royals this season. And she said, wow, it went fast, huh? And I couldn't quite tell, to be honest with you, if she was being sarcastic with me or not, because as much as I complain to you guys about how much the Royals bother me sometimes, I do it at home too, because I go home and, oh my God, I got to put the Royals on. Oh my God, the Royals are down 6-1 in the 5th inning, or whatever it might end up being. But it does. I mean, with football, starting, college, pro, so many big storylines, Chiefs, KU, K-State, all of that, NFL, college football as a whole. With everything going on, all of a sudden, whoa, we just breezed through the last 2 months of the baseball season. So next week, when the season is over for good, we will do a post-mortem for the season, some expectations, some hopes, some wants in the 2024 offseason into the 2024 campaign. But my advice to you as a Royals fan, not from me as a Royals fan, but to you as a Royals fan, take a breath. But before you get too worked up about anything in particular, because this offseason could go probably one of three ways, but two of them are pretty much the same. Either they actively make the team worse, or they do absolutely nothing to make it better, which at this point are probably the same thing. Or they surprise all of us. They spend a decent amount in free agency, maybe make another trade or two, bring in some better major league talent. Take some time to decompress after this Yankees series. Take some time to decompress and forget a little bit about the 2023 Royals, especially if they end up setting the all-time franchise record for losses in a season. If that happens, I would recommend you not think about baseball for at least a little bit. We do have some other headlines we need to get to today. It is 580 Sports Talk, shortened edition of the show because of the Royals 1.5 header today after yesterday's game was suspended after getting through 4 innings. First headline I've got for you today. One other thing to get to. Sorry, distracted momentarily. The Chiefs injury report. Let's get to that. Let's jump right on in. Our Chiefs injury report for today, your practice participation report. No changes except two, in fact, that are bad for the Kansas City Chiefs. So let's start with the downgraded players. After being a full participant yesterday, Donovan Smith limited in practice today. He is listed as having a rib injury, so that is something to keep an eye on. We remember he got banged up in the game against Chicago trying to make a tackle after a Blaine Gabbert interception. Meanwhile, Jalen Watson, this is a big one. Shoulder injury, full participant yesterday, did not practice at all today, was not on the field at all. So that's not especially good for the Chiefs in the secondary. The guys who were limited or out yesterday, well, more of the same. Nick Bolton still dealing with his ankle. He has not practiced either of the last 2 days. Noah Gray still sick. No word if it is diabetes related or not. I'm sure it's not. I just have to shoehorn in my type 1 diabetic brotherhood as much as I can. Chris Jones limited with a groin again today. Kadarius Toney limited with a toe. No worse for either of them. So at the very least, that is a positive for the Kansas City Chiefs. For the New York Jets, they actually got some good news on their practice participation report today. Running back Breece Hall still recovering from his torn ACL a year ago, the Wichita product, Iowa State product. He was a full participant in practice today. That is a big deal for the Jets. And their second best offensive lineman, certainly not their most durable, but their second best offensive lineman, Mekhi Becton, also dealing with the knee. He was upgraded today from limited to full participant. He'll be playing left tackle unless there's a last minute change for the Jets. He's been at right tackle, but they are going to move him over to the left for this weekend. 2 players still out for the Jets. Wes Schweitzer dealing with a concussion. He's still in the concussion protocol. He did not practice. Tony Adams as well, reserve safety. He did not practice today for the Jets either. And again, we will be talking all about this Chiefs game against the Jets coming up in just about 15 minutes from now. In fact, I'm going to let the clock wind a little bit. 15 minutes from now, we will talk to Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. Real quick, let's also mention this while we're here. Your players of the month around the NFL, and I have been inside baseball here, a little behind the scenes for you. With the show being super delayed and yours truly being all alone today, some things have really just kind of been haywire. We got a busy sports weekend coming up. High school football tonight, high school football tomorrow, Washburn on Saturday as well. Things have thrown me off a little bit scheduling-wise, so I pardon my scatterbrainedness. But the NFL named its players of the month for the month of September. In the AFC, Tua Tagovailoa. Not a surprise. The Dolphins are 3-0. Tua's got a passer rating of 121.9. That is remarkable. 71% of his passes completed, over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, and had 300 yards and 4 scores with no picks this past week in the 70-20 demolition by the Dolphins over the Denver Broncos. Your NFC Offensive Player of the Month, Christian McCaffrey. Not really a surprise. He leads the NFL in rushing yards, 353 on 60 carries. That is darn near 6 per carry, 6 yards per carry. And he's got total scrimmage yards of 423, so 70 receiving yards for McCaffrey so far this season as well. TJ Watt of the Pittsburgh Steelers, he is your defensive player of the month in the AFC. He already has 6 sacks. He had 5.5 last year. He has 6 already so far this season. And unsurprisingly, Micah Parsons, 12 tackles, 4 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, 8 quarterback hits. He's your NFC Defense Player of the Month. Special teamers, Tyler Bass in Buffalo, Jake Camarda for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Those are your special teamers of the month. Rookies of the month. Both of these dudes play for teams that wear the same colors, actually. I'm just noticing that right now. Both of these dudes look like they truly are dudes, by the way. C.J. Stroud, rookie quarterback of the Houston Texans. It is way too early to know for sure, but he's got the 3rd most passing yards by a rookie quarterback in their first 3 games in NFL history. Only 2 guys have ever had more passing yards in their first 3 games as an NFL quarterback. C.J. Stroud, 906 yards, almost 65% completion percentage. Hasn't thrown a pick yet. That's a big, big deal for a developing Houston team. And Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback for the New England Patriots. He is your defensive rookie of the month. Another dude who is just an absolute stud. That was, and I was talking to Dan about this earlier today. This is one of those picks. There's one every year where you say, how did this happen? Like Jalen Carter falling in the draft for this year, the Georgia defensive lineman who's now at the Eagles. Well, I've seen a lot of, oh my God, how did we let him fall to the Eagles? Well, there were legitimate concerns about Jalen Carter and his off-the-field behavior, okay? And engaging in a street race that eventually led to the death of a staffer for the University of Georgia football program. Like his involvement in the events surrounding that incident, red flags. Let's be completely blunt about it. There was absolutely no reason for Christian Gonzalez to fall as far as he did. Absolutely no good reason for it. And frankly, I am not surprised that he is having a fantastic start to his NFL career. One other headline I wanted to get to today, as we are obviously a little bit short on time for headlines. Not a whole lot going on in the sports world news-wise, but just in case you are a little worried, if you are a K-State or KU fan, that Michigan State might come calling for your head football coach. Both Chris Kleiman and Lance Leipold have put those sorts of rumors and speculation to rest this week. Chris Kleiman, we heard earlier this week, he said, nope, he is not interested. He is staying at Kansas State. We all heard that. Not really a surprise. I think right now, even with the money, because fans of Michigan State will say, well, we got money. Money. Look at all the money. Look how much more money we make than Kansas or Kansas State or all that. Yeah, you know what else you have? A failed football coach and a really bad culture around your program right now. And an AD who we don't know if he knows what he's doing. There's a stench around that Michigan State athletic department right now. It's been a while since this was in the news. That's where Larry Nassar was. I'm not trying to shove this in the face of Michigan State Spartan fans or alumni or anything, but that was a black mark on that institution. Mel Tucker, major black mark on that institution because they gave him a ton of money and he wasn't even a good coach. And also he was a creep. Allegedly. Not really allegedly. He pretty much admitted to it anyway. Do you want that job? You're never going to be the top dog in that conference if you go there. At your absolute best, you're probably absolute best, you're number 3. You're third banana. Some combination of Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan are always going to be up there in front of you. At best, you're going to be 3rd or 4th in that league. Big 12? You got institutional support. Both KU and K-State have that. And I know we're talking about Chris Kleiman specifically. We'll get to Lance Leipold in a second. But you've got the institutional support. You've got money. You've got want to. You've got a rabid fan base. You're going to fill the stadium all the time. Why would you leave? Unless you really were just trying to chase every single dollar you could get. And hey, look, if that's what Kleiman or Leipold or some other coach, a Mike Elko, a Jason Candle, someone else who's going to have their name thrown into the pot for this, thrown into the rumor mill for this. If you're just trying to chase every single dollar, fine, go to Michigan State. But right now, in terms of comfort, in terms of ceiling, why would you want to go to a different school than where the 2 Kansas coaches are right now? And that brings me to Lance Leipold, who today was on Second Thought, not our segment. That's coming up tomorrow on 580 Sports Talk. But it's a podcast hosted by writers at the Austin American Statesman and previewing Kansas, Texas this weekend. The hosts asked Lance Leipold a handful of questions, including one about coaching searches and rumors that he could be in the running to get. He said that he and his wife, Kelly, very happy in Lawrence, happy with where they are at the University of Kansas. They've got a son who's in high school. They don't want to move. Well, he's still in high school. And then he adds this. You can never say never in this game because you never know exactly what happens internally or externally, but it's our expectation that we finish my career at the University of Kansas. That is as strong as you're going to get from a coach, generally speaking, because it's not smart to say absolutely not, no chance, never, because then what happens if never gets turned around and you do leave for one reason or another? Then everyone throws it in your face, you damage your legacy, you look like a liar, all of that. You always should realistically leave that door at least slightly open, but this is about as affirmative as you're going to hear from a head coach at this level in terms of wanting to stay somewhere. Got that from Kleiman, got that from Leipold. That's good stuff for both KU and K-State going forward with their head coaches. We've got to get to a break here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, we'll do a quick preview for Thursday Night Football, and we'll talk to Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. That's all coming up in this final 33 minutes of 580 Sports Talk. .30 on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dzwierzynski here, flying solo with you in studio today. Dan Lucero getting ready for some high school football presented by Lewis Toyota on this Thursday night. It'll be Topeka West looking for its first win of the season and their first win for head coach Trey Parker as they take on Lansing in a United Kansas Conference bout. Kickoff set for 7 o'clock, pregame at 6:45 right here on 580 WIBW, following some 580 Sports Talk overtime. During overtime today, we're going to hear from the Chiefs coordinators, offense and defense. It'll be Steve Spagnuolo, then Matt Nagy, so defense, offense. And we'll hear from Jesse Newell, who joined us earlier in the week on 580 Sports Talk. That's coming up on overtime just after the top of the 6 o'clock hour today. Additionally, the only football game going on in America today is not just the one going on at Hummer Sports Park, although obviously a big deal, and you should be listening in to Dan and Greg on the call. Yours truly will be there as well. Thursday Night Football, NFL variety, though, from the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. Lambeau Field, Green Bay Packers, Detroit Lions. Packers home dogs right now. The spread sitting at +2 for the home team, Green Bay Packers. Lions favored by 2 on the road. This, to me, says take the Packers. And am I biased? Am I an owner who might just be a homer for my own team? Sure. You can obviously level those charges, and frankly, I will not beat those accusations. However, home team, short week, divisional game, I'm leaning Packers as the home dog there. Green Bay is going to get back a couple of its most important pieces. Aaron Jones looks like he's going to be good to go for today, may even get a semi-full workload. Christian Watson will also be making his season debut, or is expected to make his season debut coming up in this game today. No David Bakhtiari. He was already ruled out. He's actually going on injured reserve. So he's out for at least 4 weeks, and there seems to be some reporting from Green Bay. That might be it for his season already. Tragic for one of the best offensive linemen in the NFL, what has happened to his knee ever since he tore it back in 2020 and how much time he has missed. The Lions, though, they also are going to have some reinforcements. One of their starting tackles, Taylor Decker, he is going to be able to go in this game. If he was out, I would like Green Bay even more. Rashawn Gary's going to beat up on a second or third string offensive tackle, not worried about that. But with a full-strength offensive line, that makes Detroit a whole lot more difficult to go up against. Here's the other thing you have to consider in a game like this, or at the very least, you may indulge me while I consider this, because it is the team that I have poured so much emotional energy into over the course of my life. After an emotional win, an emotional game, an exhausting, draining game like the Packers had this past Sunday when they were down 17-0, came back to beat the Saints 18-17. Is the emotional letdown coming? Maybe the adrenaline is still pumping enough just 4 days out from that game that they don't have to worry about it, but we'll see. I'm taking the Packers in this one. I think it'll be a low-scoring game. I take that back. I think we're going to hit the over in this game. The over is 45.5. I originally thought it'd be low-scoring. I reconsidered. I don't think the Lions' defense is very good. The Packers' run defense, I know, stinks. So I'm going to pick a high-scoring game. Give me Packers 27, Lions 23. We'll get to 50 points. That's over the 45.5 total. We've got to get to a break. We've got big football coming up on Sunday night as the Chiefs take on the Jets. We'll preview that game, recap Chiefs-Bears, and get to everything going on with the Super Bowl champions with the voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus. He'll join us next right here on 580 Sports Talk. It's our favorite time of the week here on 580 Sports Talk. Bottom of the 5 o'clock hour on a Thursday during the Kansas City Chiefs season. And you know what that means. It is time for our good friend Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, to join us here on 580 Sports Talk. Brought to you, as always, by Hy-Vee and by Azura Credit Union. It'll be Chiefs versus Jets coming up on Sunday night. We'll get to that matchup coming up here in just a few moments. Mitch, good to hear from you. How you feeling on this Thursday afternoon, my friend? No doubt, yeah. Well, hopefully, we'll make sure the trainers are on their on their best game today at Hummer Sports Park. We got some action coming up here a little bit later on tonight. Mitch, before we get to the football, I know our listeners are a little tired of this topic, so I want to approach it from a different way. I'm not going to ask you about Travis Kelce's love life because he has for privacy, and frankly, I don't care what he does in his love life. That is his own business. But I do want to ask, what has it been like as someone who is embedded with this team all year round for all these many years now, to not just be the center of the football world and the sports world, but also the pop culture world this week? What has that been like for this organization? Well, let's get to what actually happened on the field at Arrowhead Stadium this past Sunday. And you told us last week, Mitch, and we brought it up again on Friday last week, that the Chiefs could not let the Bears' issues and distractions become their issues and distractions. So all the Chiefs did was go out there and put on a clinic for a full 60 minutes, especially that first half. I mean, it looked like a scrimmage for part of that game. And I don't mean to pile on the Bears too much. I know they're dealing with a lot, but I mean, man, that was a full-on beatdown by the Kansas City Chiefs. Was there any particular element of that game that really impressed you the most? I mean, you beat any team in the NFL 41-10, no matter how much they're struggling. That's a pretty darn impressive win.
Three phases. It was that all three phases were at the high level. This is everybody contributing, even starting with Montrell Washington in his 23-yard punt return. Nobody knew who he was. If they were listening, I was explaining to them, hey, this is the guy that played against us last year for the Broncos. Now he's a Chief. And then Tommy Townsend punting 55 yards perfectly out of bounds at the 3. The defense continuing just to maul people and to basically pitch a shutout. I just felt bad. Those are 10 garbage points at the end. And then the offense to click. And it's not just click, it's the way they click. And the fact that it wasn't just running go routes and tossing it down there and getting 50-yard gains. The Bears played a ton of zone. And the Chiefs' young receivers were able, for the most part, to understand it was zone, find the voids in the zones, just stuff we talked about the last 2 to 3 weeks, and be where Pat needed them to be to kind of roll and get in a rhythm. And for the most part, you score 7 straight possessions, I think you're in a rhythm. But it was how they did it that was most impressive. Again, all three phases, and the younger guys showing some propensity to understand, oh, this is what defense they're in. I'll go to the right spot at the right time.
Defensively, everybody knew that it was going to be a key to slow down that Bears running attack. And they've got some talented running backs. Their offensive line struggling. And obviously, for all of Justin Fields' potential foibles as a passer, he's a heck of a runner, and he's an unbelievable athlete at the quarterback spot. And I thought the Chiefs defense did a sensational job slowing them down. 116 yards on 26 carries for the Bears, 4.5 per. without even 100 yards passing, you'll take that kind of number any single day. And I think the linebackers in particular, especially without Nick Bolton out there, stepped up and played really well. We talked about Drew Tranquill back during our training camp reports. I thought he was sensational in that game. What'd you think of the run defense, and what'd you think of the way the front seven was able to limit the Bears' biggest strength?
It'll be a boring answer, but we don't talk about it enough in football terms, and that is tackling. This Chiefs team, for the most part, for 3 weeks now, has been a superb tackling team. Tranquill was awesome the other day because Fields was about ready to get out the gate for one of those 20-mile-an-hour runs, and he never could get it revved up. Trent McDuffie and all the DBs have been good at tackling, and then McDuffie's getting feisty and poking the ball out. But this has been a good tackling team, and I know it's boring, but don't take it for granted. This is a day and age where tackling is at a premium, and this Chiefs, even the DBs, mostly the DBs, are some of its best tacklers.
We're talking to Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk, as he does every single Thursday at this time during the Chiefs season. Mitch is brought to you by both Hy-Vee and by Azura Credit Union. Looking ahead, Mitch, to this coming Sunday night, another primetime game for the Chiefs. And of course, you can hear that game on the Chiefs radio network, including here on 580 WIBW. They're going to New York. They're going to take on the New York Jets. And just as a football fan, Mitch, does it feel almost painful that we have gotten so many chances to get Mahomes versus Rodgers, and it just has never panned out? And I was at the first two potential meetings. I remember Arrowhead 2019, Mahomes was hurt, and man, Matt Moore did a great job to keep the Chiefs in that game, and it was a heck of a game. That was Sunday Night Football as well. A couple of years ago, I was there, and I thought I was going to see Aaron Rodgers, and I saw Jordan Love's first start instead. So we have had so many close calls. Now Rodgers out for the year due to the injury. Just from a football fan perspective, doesn't it hurt that we might never get to see that matchup?
Well, it's just weird. It's one of those you can't make this up category because of the situation. So Mahomes gets hurt. That was after his dislocated kneecap. He had the foot issues as well during that time in October of 19. Then Rodgers gets COVID in that Jordan Love game you're talking about, so he couldn't get there. And then in 4 snaps in one of the more anticipated Jets seasons since Joe Namath, he tears his Achilles. Like, you're serious? It's one of those where, you have to, like a Ted Lasso script writer again. So, yeah, it's a bummer. But, one of these days, Zach Wilson's going to play to his ability, and you're not going to want to be there if you're on the other side, because there's dudes on this Jets team. If Garrett Wilson, if the Chiefs got him in a trade, look out. He's really, really good. But there's some capable guys on this Jets team. But, yeah, you could see what they were doing. Like, we're going to go out and get Aaron Rodgers and make this thing hum.
I think the tide has thankfully turned on this, but I feel like Willie Gay was very inappropriately, frankly, put on blast for his comments about the Jets this week. He was asked about their offense, and he gave a comment about their offense. This is a team that is at its best when they're running, and look who the guys they have in their backfield are. Breece Hall, the Wichita product. He's a stud. That's a superstar in the making. Dalvin Cook's been a good player for a long time. Offensively for the Jets, given how much Wilson has struggled as of late, what are they, do you think, going to try to do to move the ball against the Chiefs? And the counter to that is, what can the Chiefs do to limit some of those playmakers, both in the run game and on the perimeter, that the Jets have?
The thesis, if I'm the Jets, is to somehow replicate the Bills game as much as I possibly can. And it's going to involve all 3 phases. You asked me about the offense in particular, but there's no way the offense can pull this off by themselves. Now, Breece Hall, the pride of Wichita Northwest High School, the Fighting Grizzlies, is a stud, and he was on his way to a monumental rookie year, and they tore his ACL, but he's back and cooking. And then, no pun intended, they go get Dalvin Cook. But Garrett Wilson, to me, is a guy who can change a game. If you look, if the Jets, they've got to replicate the Bills game. And Garrett Wilson's play at the pylon, where it's really well defended, and the play he made was would make NBA stars blush at the pylons. Just go back and find it. I know you saw it, but if fans don't know, go find it. It's just, oh my gosh, this guy's unreal. But I'm gonna make it all 3 phases answer, because in that game, of course, they had Xavier Gibson with a walk-off 65-yard punt return, and then defensively they got to, I'll get to the crux of the matter, and one of my nuggets for you tonight, but defensively, they tormented Josh Allen. But there's still some big playabilities. I mean, I talked to Coach Reed about it today. I'm going to ask him about it on a post-game show, too, when I get the chance publicly to kind of have that discussion. And that's the fact that Zach Wilson can throw the ball. Go find a 68-yard touchdown pass against the Cowboys to, Garrett Wilson. I mean, there's enough here to cause concern if you're a card-carrying member of the Chiefs Kingdom. And don't go laughing in saying, this Jets team, it'll just be like the Bears game. It will not be.
That defense for the Jets, I mean, there's no getting around it. It is nasty. And I think they've got more star power in their back end than they have up front. We know Quinnen Williams. We know he got the big payday during this offseason. And John Franklin Myers is a really nice player. He's been able to get after the quarterback a little bit to start this season. But the star power for them is on their back end, and it's led by Sauce Gardner, the young cornerback out of Cincinnati, teammate, of course, in college of Brian Cook. The Chiefs' offense against that Jets team, to me, it comes down to protect Mahomes, because even the best corners can't guard guys for 6-7 seconds every play. How do you view that situation, that matchup for the Chiefs? What will it take to be at their best against one of the best defenses they'll play this year?
Well, let's go back to what I mentioned about the receivers last week for the Chiefs passing that grade of playing against zone. Now, the Jets will play more, they'll play a lot of zone, but they'll mix in man. But you're also talking about superb athletes in the secondary. You mentioned Gardner. I've got a nugget. One of my first nuggets of the night is dealing with Sauce Gardner. But don't forget DJ Reed here. I mean, here's K-Stater, who's been around the league for 6 years. He's blossoming in this system. Now, he had been with Robert Saleh before in San Francisco, but he hadn't played to this level. And then you got Jordan Whitehead, who had the 3 interceptions. Speaking of tormenting Josh Allen of the Bills in week 1, he had 3 interceptions in that game. And Whitehead was last seen by us, tormenting us in Super Bowl 55 with that Buccaneers secondary. So there's other cats. Adrian Amos is back there. He's been a Bear and bounced around, but he's got some skill and he's got savvy. This group now, this secondary group will be one of the better groups the Chiefs will play all season long.
Finishing things up with Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Well, let me give you my Sauce Gardner nugget first, because this one I found surprising. Because honestly, if they're going to get rolling here until their offense kind of gets at least to the point they win games. So Sauce was the defensive rookie of the year last year.
Yep.
Great career. You mentioned it, Cincinnati, part of that team that got to the college football playoff with Brian Cook. But last year, he was awesome. He only allowed 33 catches and 73 targets. That's as a rookie. And the QBR against him, the quarterback rating, was 53.5. This year, and this includes the Bills game, where they pretty much commanded it, he's allowed 12 catches, Sauce Gardner, on 15 targets, and a quarterback rating against him of 121.9. So what does that mean? I don't know. You look at the 3 teams they played, but Sauce Gardner is not dominating in his second year like he did his rookie year. Let's hope that continues.
I did want to ask Mitch, and again, we're talking to Mitch Holthus, voice of the Chiefs, as a courtesy of Hy-Vee and Azure Credit Union here on 580 Sports Talk. The one pass catcher I wanted to make sure we touched on, I know we're avoiding the personal life stuff, but on the field, Travis Kelce scores a touchdown, 4 for 26 and a touchdown his first week back, about as productive as you could hope coming off of what was essentially a scary knee injury, or early on was a scary knee injury. Last week, he's your leading receiver for the Chiefs. Do you feel like you've seen him round into form, whether it's practice this week, this game this past week against Chicago? Do you feel like he's pretty much back at 100%?
Not quite, but he's getting there, and he's getting there in a hurry. And people ask, I've been asked a zillion times about, with this Taylor Swift stuff, like it'll really, if there's anybody that can handle it on the football field, it's going to be Kelce or Mahomes. So I lose sleep over a lot of stuff, but that's not one of them. But he's getting there. And I'm really curious what the Jets will do to him. Robert Saleh's seen him before, right? Robert Saleh was the defensive coordinator in Super Bowl 54 with the 49ers and saw Kelce when that game turned. Kelce turned the game, a big part of it. So do they match him? Do they take Whitehead and do they match on him? Do they take Sauce Gardner and put Sauce Gardner inside and match on Kelce to say Kelce's not going to beat us? Because he's going to get somewhere between 8 and 10 targets at the minimum. But even then, we've seen that because he's had corners on him. Like he's beaten Jalen Ramsey. He's beaten Surtain. He's beaten all the really good corners. But I'm curious what the Jets will do if they'll put him some kind of maybe a little bit of a junk defense on him. But he's getting there. Not 100% yet, but he'll be rolling, man. By Sunday night, he'll be cooking.
Mitch Holthus is the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. He joins us every Thursday at this time during Chiefs season for our weekly chat about all things reigning Super Bowl champions. He joins us brought to you by both Hy-Vee and Azure Credit Union. And of course, you can hear him right on our airwaves on the Chiefs radio network coming up Sunday night as the Chiefs take on the New York Jets. Mitch, as always, my friend, thank you so much for taking the time for us. We appreciate it. Enjoy the Big Apple and enjoy Sunday's game.
One more nugget for you.
Let's do it.
The key to this game. The key to this game. And you hear every football coach, I don't care if you're Hayden or Silver Lake or Rossville, stay ahead of the chains. The Chiefs have been behind the chains 12 times this year in their 32 possessions. But in the Bills game, the Bills-Jets game, week 1, right? The Jets shock the world. They lose Aaron Rodgers and still beat the Bills. There were 11 possessions for the Buffalo Bills in that game. 7 times the Jets forced the Bills into behind-the-chains situations on 7 of the 11 drives, and all 3 of the interceptions thrown by Josh Allen to Jordan Whitehead were the result of the Bills being behind the chains. That is more than 10 yards to go for a first down. Went back and watched it, looked at it, and I go, ooh, this is a big problem. So the penalties, sacks, negative runs, stay ahead of the chains in this game if you're the Chiefs. That is checklist number 1.
Real quick, Mitch, before you go, I'm sure you're aware, but War on 24 coming up tomorrow night. We'll be there for our game of the week, War on 24. You excited for it?
I am. Always. The greatest, one of the greatest games of rivalry in high school in the state, of course, but I love that game. I just love it. And I saw the fact that now Rossville drops to 1A in 24 and 25. They actually take the place of St. Mary's, who won 1A last year with that 99-yard drive against Inman. So that gets close to home because you know who else is 1A trying to scrape their way back up the rankings.
That's
number
right.
5, I know on K-Preps. Yep, the old alma mater of Smith Center will be there. I mean, one day there could be a Smith Center Rossville State Championship, and then you're going to go look up the 1979 game, one of the most famous games in Kansas high school history.
You know we will. Mitch, we appreciate the time, man. Enjoy New York.
See you, boys.
That
and,
is
Mitch. Go get that war, man. That's going to be awesome.
We can't wait for it. That is Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, the absolute best of the best. I always appreciate when Mitch takes some time for us here on 580 Sports Talk. We've got one more break to get to on the show today. We'll come back, wrap up this abbreviated edition of 580 Sports Talk with the final word. That's up next here on 580 WIBW. Time to wrap up 580 Sports Talk with a very quick final word, and that final word for me, well, frankly, I'm just going to indulge myself. We had a short show today. The Royals took us late. We had barely even an hour-long show, so I'll just give you a quick go, Pack, go for me tonight. Packers-Lions, Thursday Night Football. Have that game on mute, all right? So put it up on your smart TV, your desktop, whatever. Have that game muted. Sorry, Al. Sorry, Herbie. And then tune into 580 WIBW tonight, 6:45 pregame, 7 o'clock kickoff from Hummer Sports Park. Dan Lucero, Greg Akagi, and yours truly as well on the call for Topeka West versus Lansing. And again, right here on 580 WIBW. Here at the top of the hour, we have some 580 Sports Talk overtime taking you into our high school football coverage tonight. So until we chat tomorrow at 2 o'clock, I'm Brendan Dzwierzynski, and thank you as always for listening to this edition of 580 Sports Talk.